David Wojnarowicz, Close to the Knives. In the yellowing dust, the red bricks of the buildings go to sleep. They fade into the shadows of streets, and only the uppermost windows show the slow night coming in. I can place myself out there in the sky, lie down in the texture, and dream of years and years of sleep, and talk inside my head of change and of peace for this body beside me, for life for this body beside me, a belief in these unalterable positions in the shifting state of things, of disbelief, of need for something to suddenly and abruptly take place, like that last image of some Antonioni film where the young woman looks at the house her father built, and because of her gaze it explodes, not once but twice in slow motion. Huge fireballs of rupturing gas lines and couches and tables and chairs splintering into waves of shards and lighting glass, drifting in glittering helixes, and even the entire contents of the family refrigerator lovingly spilling out toward the eye in rage. A perfect rage that I was beginning to understand. Seeing myself hovering in the atmosphere outside the building's walls and wanting a shout to come from my throat that would level all the buildings, or else to just have the strength in my hands where I could rip up the earth like cheap fabric and release a windscreen of lava and heat, or with a fist bringing against and banging against my thighs create shock waves that could cease all of the manufacturing of the pre-invented world to go tumbling down in a slow and terrifying beauty till the earth was level, or maybe just to have some water pour from my head. Now the thing about Wojnarowicz is he knew he was dying, but he still loved life. So he had to write about both that beauty and the possibility of an early death, which did come much too soon. And I can't recommend highly enough any and all of his books, including one that almost looks like a child's book called Memories That Smell Like Gasoline. Why does this one die and that one not? What does all this mean? How do I map all this down? I respect just about every attempt at survival. I mean, I witness these days, but every person will eventually lose his struggle, just as I will one day, and that makes each attempt more filled with life. That means sadness, a loss, but also sweetness in the attempts. That means maybe fewer hours on the face of this disorderly planet, but less shit I'll have to deal with. And anyway, here I am in the back seat of a taxi cab, waiting for the light to turn green so that I can arrive at my home because I feel too sick to walk, or wait for a bus. And isn't it lovely, this pattern of sunlight drifting through the side window across the back of my hand, laying at rest on my thigh? Isn't it beautiful, the fact that I can see this light? One day I won't. One day you won't either. Sometimes I watch the leaders of this country on television and think at least nature will reach where assassins are unable to tread. Maybe they'll die of massive coronaries from all their cannibal banquets, or maybe brain tumors from the radiation in the environment. Education is and will always be a generational thing, and because of that, I lose hope sometimes in the idea that the shape of what we have to live in might change. I've always viewed my friends as checkpoints in a series of motions of resistance to this flood of hyenas in state or religious drag. If we all die off, what will happen to those we leave behind who are just this moment being born? I realize that cretins have roamed and always will roam this planet, whether I'm here or not. There's one born every minute. This is a jarring drift. This perspective makes my heart and soul sway. I want relief from this tired yapping of my brain. I wish I could pluck it out and throw it into the corner where it can chatter away while I go out for the evening. There was a period of time immediately after getting off the streets that I could barely talk. I lived in a halfway home with a group of ex-cons. There was a high rate of recidivism for the guys I hung around with. Someone in the old neighborhood kills a distant cousin, or you get a gun and shoot the guy who killed him, and then tap into the old family network and take a series of trains to the south. Honor is upheld, revenge exacted, and nobody gives a shit in the overloaded law enforcement agencies. I kept going back and hanging around on the streets every chance I could. It was the only place where I felt comfortable and surrounded by people with a similar frame of reference. In the halfway house, guys were provided with a minimal structure of otherworld existence. How do you do your laundry? How do you wash dishes? How do you keep a bank account for part of your meager earnings? How to make a bed? How to impress a boss while asking for a janitor job? No one spoke my language except for the hustlers back on 42nd Street, or the occasional John who picked me up for some cash in wild times. I learned how to appear in such ways to never give an indication of my past when walking through the structures of daily life and work, but in order to just blend in order to just carry on, in order to do what I'm supposed to do, in order to not go crazy, I planned robberies of electronic shops in Herald Square, and I planned robberies I never committed of banks, and some individuals on the street or at the fundraising parties given by city politicians for kids in the halfway house. We were invited to Upper Park Avenue co-ops to eat meals with shrunken rich people, sitting at banquet tables attended by servants in uniforms. Hours afterwards, I'd be in a midtown hotel bathroom fucking some businessman in a quiet toilet stall for $20. Death was a corporate type wearing an oversized death skull mask and gesticulating at me from the horizon. My fear was based on understanding the social structure that beckoned to me and promised a life of security and support to me if I would just embrace its illusion and lies. If I let this illusion wrap its stinking arms around me, I knew I'd suffer a death more terrifying than physical death, an emotional and intellectual strangulation. The life that the man in the grinning death mask waved like a banner from the edge of the horizon was one in an activity that I cared nothing about, but one that I would repeat endlessly until the day my teeth fell out, all in order to be able to eat and sleep inside a tiny wood and plaster structure he'd allowed me to call home. So this is the beauty of a man dying while still wanting to live. Wanting intimacy, but having to use sex to support himself, to stay alive. Dying of AIDS in a time when so many other people were, and nobody was really doing enough about it.